SEC Media Days, day number 2 yesterday in Dallas, day 3 of 4 today in Dallas as well. Kalen DeBoer will make his debut at SEC Media Days, a new era in Tuscaloosa. Of course, no longer the head man, Nick Saban. Texas, one of the newcomers, will be there at the podium today. What will Steve Sarkisian have to say for a Longhorns unit that is expected to contend for an SEC title? Oklahoma joining their most bitter rivals in Texas, in the SEC, of course, in the realigned and expanded conference. In the last few years at Big 12 Media Days, officiating was often asked, what are you going to do with the horns down symbol, right? Mockery of the horns up for Texas, used to celebrate on either side. When Oklahoma's head coach, Brent Venables, was asked about it yesterday, should it be a penalty, he said, quote, I don't really have an opinion. Football is a game of emotion. If they say it's a penalty, then don't do it. If it's a free-for-all, have at it. Whatever rules are in place, we'll do it, end quote. The head of SEC officiating also asked a similar question, and he pretty much says that context is important. If you do it in the face of a Texas player, that's taunting. You're going to get flagged 15 yards unsportsmanlike. If you're doing it on the sideline to celebrate with your teammates after a huge momentum-turning play, there's nothing they can do. They're just celebrating being the boys and having a good time. So it seems as though the horns down has made its way to the Southeastern Conference.
That's good. That's the way it's supposed to be, though, right? There's taunting. There's spiking a football when you score a touchdown, which we love. Then when you beat a guy deep and he falls down the end zone, you spike it right next to his head. That's a penalty. That's taunting. We understand that. We're grown-ups here. Yes, you want the rivalries in there. You want the edge on that. Same thing when you score a touchdown against Miami. They hold up the U, and then they flip it down. Look, I'm a Miami fan. I think it's creative. I'm like, you know what? Hey, man, you scored a touchdown. You got to get your digs in at this point. Harkening back to my days of the early, mid-80s, I should say, and early 1990s. Celebrations in college football were absolutely wild. Like, Miami was dancing on every sack. You ever see Lamar Thomas back in the day catch a touchdown or just catch a big play, number 36 for the Hurricanes? He would take his helmet off in the middle of the field, and you were allowed to do that. Then several years later, the minute you crossed the goal line, it was like 16 referees jumped out of the stands to separate you from the ball, make sure you got back to the sidelines. Like, times have changed in college, and we understand that. You never want to see taunting where it upsets the other player, which draws a reaction. But you're telling me a touchdown against Texas in a big game, you roll up to their fan base in the back of the end zone and throw that horns down. I love that. That's pageantry. We need that.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
just can't have the taunting. That's fine. They should never outlaw that.
You know how bad things were in year number 1 under Mario Cristobal in Miami? You remember when Duke's Brandon Johnson had a pick six against the Canes in Miami, took it back to the house, and then put up the U and broke it over his leg? Whew, that was a tough time for Donnie's favorite college team for whatever reason. As we go around the SEC from yesterday, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs booked as the favorites to win the Southeastern Conference title this year, plus 185. Kirby Smart was asked about NIL funding that his former defensive coordinator and Oregon head coach, Dan Lanning, is set to receive. Of course, Phil Knight, an alum of Oregon, puts all of his Nike money into the Ducks. And Kirby had this to say, quote, I wish I could get some of that NIL money that he's sharing with Dan Lanning, but that's another note, end quote. Kirby Smart is a master motivator. Kirby Smart knows how to take nothing and make it into something. The idea that Athens is cash-strapped is a little bit hard to believe, Mr. Smart.
Yeah, it's just the SEC coaches going like, this isn't right. Now we can pay legally. We used to be the conference that got away paying illegally, which means we could afford anybody we wanted. Now Phil Knight has an open checkbook out and can write a check. That's just not fair at this point. It's crazy how the tables have turned. And again, it's a new wave, and it's just one of those competitive edges. All Kirby Smart is trying to do is make sure his fan base and his boosters are reading these articles. What you're giving me is not enough. If you want to compete in college football, because right now we can't compete despite being a great team every year and winning multiple national championships, you got to spend more money. It's crazy how the people, how do they say it? It's like you have a Virginia ham under your arm and then you're asking for bread in the other hand, something like that. I mean, that's what Kirby Smart is actually telling us right now. How about that?
Yeah, it certainly is. Georgia, by the way, is the favorite not only to win the SEC, but a national title at 3-1. UGA to get to the college football playoff minus 600. maybe you remember the debate here on the show on that Monday following Selection Sunday. I believe it was December 4th, where I was yelling at the top of my lungs at both Donnie and Mark Zito for Florida State's exclusion from the college football playoff. We didn't spend a lot of time on Georgia. They should have been there as well, and they will be in 2024. Hour 2 starts next.